Hey everybody, hope you're having a great day. We're reading the Federalist Papers, very important texts in American history. A lot of political science majors don't really bother to read these, and it's probably a reason why we've become so ignorant of our founding fathers' culture and what we can learn from them. So let's dig in together. I will definitely write this book on my college apps because it's so niche and so nerdy that how can we not write it, right? Okay, we are on Alexander Hamilton's essay, and it's number 8, The Consequences of Hostilities Between the States. Here we go. Assuming it, therefore, as an established truth that the several states, in case of disunion, or such combinations of them as might happen to be formed out of the wreck of the general confederacy, would be subject to those vicissitudes of peace and war. Notice this beautiful vocabulary: vicissitudes of peace and war, of friendship and enmity with each other, which have fallen to the lot of all neighboring nations not united under one government. So he's contending here that other nations have tried to not be unified, and they end up just, falling apart. So let us enter into a concise detail of some of the consequences that would attend such a situation. So he's going to enlighten us what happens when your country is no longer united. We know. We can see, but let's see what he says. War between the states, in the first period of their separate existence, would be accompanied with much greater distress than it commonly is in those countries where regular military establishments have long obtained. The disciplined armies always kept on foot on the continent of Europe, though they bear a malignant aspect to the liberty and economy, have, notwithstanding, been productive of the signal advantage of rendering sudden conquest impracticable. So signal advantage, rendering sudden conquest impracticable. So it's like, hey, to engage in said conquest, it's not really practical, so we're just gonna end up preventing that rapid desolation, so quick deterioration essentially, which used to mark the progress of war prior to the introduction. The art of fortification has contributed to the same needs. The art of fortification. Wow. The nations of Europe are encircled with chains of fortified places. Look at that. The nations of Europe are encircled with chains of fortified places, which mutually obstruct invasion. Look at this. Fortifications that obstruct invasion. Campaigns are wasted in reducing 2 or 3 frontier garrisons to gain admittance into an enemy's country. So look at this. So ground campaigns, if they meet a garrison, it really depletes their forces, and that's just on entering. You see this? Similar impediments occur at every step to exhaust the strength and delay the progress of an invader. Delay the progress and exhaust your invader. Formerly, an invading army would penetrate into the heart of a neighboring country almost as soon as intelligence of its approach could be received. But now, a comparatively small force of disciplined troops, acting on the defensive with the aid of posts, is able to impede and finally to frustrate the enterprises of one much more considerable. So look at this. It reminds me of the Bronn in Game of Thrones says, give me 12 good men and I'll impregnate the bee. Bee is in the bad word. But it's and even Ramsay Bolton had that in his character development, where you have a small force, a Delta type force that can go in and work hard and can do a lot more in certain cases. With the aid of posts is able to impede and finally to frustrate the enterprises of one much more considerable. The history of war in that quarter of the globe is no longer a history of nations subdued and empires overturned. Look at this. Nations subdued, empires overturned. Subdue the nation, overturn the empire. But of towns taken and retaken. Look at this. Taking a town, subduing nations, overturning empires. Of battles that decide nothing. Of retreats more beneficial than victories. of much more effort and little acquisition. In this country the scene would be together reversed. The jealousy of military establishments would postpone them as long as possible. The want of fortifications leaving the frontiers of one state open to another. Look at this. The want of fortifications, so the lack thereof, leaving frontiers on a state open, would facilitate inroads. The populous states would, with little difficulty, overrun their less populous neighbors. Conquests would be easily made difficult to be retained. Notice this. Man, that's a really interesting thing to think about. I mean, look at California has rival states on the east coast, eastern southern coasts, and it'd be hard for them to overturn each other, but it is quite fascinating. Wouldn't be possible. They'd have to. But if California went with Nevada against Nevada, or even started something with Washington and Oregon, that would be a dilemma. Or Utah and Colorado, but those states get along pretty well. California doesn't get along with other states very well, but they're on the edge. So they wouldn't necessarily have a border dispute. However, something that is happening now is people are leaving California in mass and moving to red states, but the red states are upset because they don't want the liberal agenda, the failed liberal policies to pollute and ruin the red states. The red states have their own problem, but if you notice Seattle and California, lots of ghettos, lots of far left communist extremist movements going on, very opposite values of what the red states have. So again, rent prices are making people flee, but they're bringing the same failed policies with them that will then ruin those states, and then you'll see a clash of cultures there. So this is quite interesting. Even though he's talking about this time period, what he says still applies to the now, essentially. War, therefore, would be desultory and predatory. So look at this. A war of that type would be desultory and predatory. Plunder and devastation ever march in the train of irregulars. Plunder and devastation ever march in the train of irregulars. What a beautiful phrase. Dystopic, but beautiful. The calamities of individuals would make the principal figure in the events which would characterize our military exploits. This picture is not too highly wrought, though I confess it would not long remain a just one. Safety from external danger is the most powerful director of national conduct. Look at that. So national conduct is at its best when it's directed towards keeping the internal safe from the external dangers. Look at that. Even the ardent love of liberty will, after time, give way to its dictates. Yeah. Especially if it's taken away in the name of safety, right? The violent destruction of life and property incident to war, the continual effort and alarm attendant on a state of continual danger, will compel nations, the most attached to liberty, to resort for repose and security to institutions which have a tendency to destroy their civil and political rights. Man, it's like he saw the future, man. Did you hear what he just said? So if you're in a state of continual danger, someone tells you there will always be danger to you. People will give up their liberty and to resort for peace and security, but to institutions that will then turn around and destroy their civil and political rights and liberties. NSA, TSA, right? The Patriot Act. What's the other ones? Oh, there's so many, I don't even know them all. But, yeah. This is very familiar. Alexander Hamilton said that. See, this is why it's so important to read these texts. To be more safe, they at length become willing to run the risk of being less free. Dude, do you have any idea how many times people say this, but they don't know where they got the phrase from? And Alexander Hamilton is the one that told us this. This is why these figures are so important. Forget about race, all this crap of identity politics at this period right now, and look at what they're saying. These people were well read, right? They were very educated. They were revolutionaries. They were amongst the inner circles of formulations of government, right? They risked their lives to break away from an imperial crown. It wasn't a joke, right? You got to give respect to these people. I mean, it's amazing how somebody working in a pizza shop who's probably never read 5 books in his life, only, maybe relaxes and drinks at the bar, will sit and be like, Hamilton ain't this, he ain't that. And it's like, that's just, you gotta read what they wrote, man. They're very valuable. Oh, man. Just in the first 2 pages of his essay, we already learn a lot. It's quite brilliant.